Hey there, it's Taslima. I'm 32, female, and I want to share with you a roller coaster of a story that happened in my life. So picture this. I was living a fairly normal life with my husband, Duncan. Like any couple, we had our ups and downs, but I never expected him to treat me the way he did after my car accident. It all started on that fateful day when I got into a terrible accident because some idiot on the road was too busy texting instead of paying attention. I don't even want to think about how my life took a 180-degree turn after that moment. I was left immobilized and the doctors gave me a slim chance of ever regaining full functionality in my legs. My world crumbled and depression crept in like an unwelcome guest. I couldn't work anymore, so I lost my job, which just added to the pile of misery. At one point, I even found myself contemplating the unthinkable, suicide. But I held on, hoping for a glimmer of light in this dark tunnel. Duncan, my husband, was supposed to be my rock, my support system during this difficult time. And he did step up initially, I'll give him that. But as the days turned into weeks and then months, I guess he got tired of taking care of me. He started making excuses for not being there for me, conveniently forgetting his vow of in sickness and in health. At first, I believed his excuses. Work was demanding, and I knew he had responsibilities, especially since I wasn't working anymore. I understood that he had to work double time to support us, but it soon became clear that something wasn't right. He'd claim he had to work late or he couldn't drop me off at my physical therapy because Judy called. But here's the thing. Judy was always calling and I smelt something fishy. Deep down, I started to suspect that he was lying. I tried to confront him about it, but he'd get defensive and turn the tables on me, making me feel guilty for questioning him. I felt so helpless, trapped in a body that didn't function like it used to, and stuck with a husband who seemed to be slipping away. The isolation and emotional pain weighed on me, making every day feel like a never-ending battle. I reached out to friends and family for support, but it just wasn't the same as having Duncan by my side. I yearned for him to be the loving and caring partner he once was, but it felt like he had vanished into thin air. I was tired of feeling like a burden, like my disability was a nuisance to him. So I began to withdraw, not even depending on him to take care of me and support me during my recovery. Strap in, because this part of my story gets even crazier. After I started focusing on my own recovery and pulling away from Duncan, he became even more distant. It's like he couldn't be bothered with me anymore. Sometimes I wouldn't even see him for days or weeks, and he'd always have some excuse about being busy. You'd think that after witnessing my progress in therapy and physical therapy, he'd be excited for me, but nope. Not a single word of encouragement or congratulations from him. It felt like I was living with a complete stranger, not my husband, and it was tearing me apart. One day I got a text from a friend who seemed to have some juicy information about Duncan, and boy did she spill the tea. Turns out my dear husband was partying it up at a club, surrounded by booze and not one, not two, but at least 6 girls all over him, kissing and fondling him. Yeah, I had the same reaction. My heart shattered into a million pieces when I saw the screenshots my friend sent me. Someone had posted themselves on their Instagram story, and there was Duncan in the background, caught red-handed, cheating on his wife and enjoying the high life with booze, women, and what appeared to be some hard drugs on the table. I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like my whole world was crumbling around me. Every time he said he was going on business trips or had to rush to the office, was it all just a bunch of lies? Was he actually rushing to get his fix of drugs and have his little party and cheating escapades? The betrayal cut deep, and I questioned every single thing about our relationship. How could he do this to me, especially when I needed his support the most? I felt so alone and abandoned, and the pain was indescribable. I became even more withdrawn, isolating myself from Duncan even further. He noticed the change in me, but instead of trying to understand or support me, he grew agitated and started blaming me for the problems in our marriage. One day, we got into a huge fight, and man, I swear I could have killed someone that day. Duncan and I sat across from each other at the dinner table, the tension palpable in the air. He looked at me with a mixture of frustration and concern in his eyes. "Taslima, what's been going on with you lately? You've been so withdrawn and I can't seem to reach you. It's like you're shutting me out." I took a deep breath, trying to find the right words to express my feelings without revealing everything I knew. "I'm just going through a tough time, Duncan. You know, about the accident and how it's affected me physically and emotionally. It's been hard for me to cope with everything." "I get that it's been tough, but I feel like you're pushing me away. I'm your husband, Taslima. I should be the one you turn to for support." "Oh, please, Duncan, don't act all high and mighty now. I tried to lean on you at first, but you've been so distant. You're always working late or coming up with some excuse to avoid spending time with me. It's like you're not even here." "Tassie, that's not fair. You know I have a demanding job. You know that. I have to work long hours to provide for us." "Demanding job, my ass." "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Something tells me that maybe you haven't been completely honest about how you're spending your time away from me, Duncan." "What are you trying to say, Taslima?" "I think you know exactly what I'm trying to say. Do you have anything you want to tell me?" "Look, Taslima, I get it. You're upset because your legs don't work anymore. I can't imagine how tough this is for you. But this is tough for me too." "Nice." "I didn't sign up for this, okay? I didn't expect our life to be like this. I thought things would be different." "None of us expected this, Duncan. Life threw us a curveball, and I'm trying my best to deal with it. But it's hard when I feel like I don't have my partner by my side. It's hard when you're always out doing God knows what." "Working, okay? I'm working." "Yeah, I bet you are. I bet you're just grinding and hustling 24/7. Thank you, Duncan, for your incessant hard work." Duncan looked taken aback by my words, and I could see the guilt flicker in his eyes. He knew that he hadn't been there for me when I needed him the most. "I didn't realize it was affecting you this much. I thought you were getting better." "I am getting better. Not that you're ever around to notice." He, for whatever reason, started looking guilty, but I couldn't care less about his feelings anymore. All I could think about was how I had been lied to and deceived by the person who was supposed to love and care for me. I wanted revenge to make him feel the pain and betrayal he had caused me, but I knew that I had to bide my time, to wait for the right moment to strike. I couldn't risk confronting him without a plan in place. So I continued to play my part, pretending that I didn't know what he was doing, while I plotted my revenge and escape. I reached out to friends and family for support, and they became my lifeline during those dark days. I knew that I had to find a way out of this toxic marriage, no matter how difficult it would be. I deserved better than a loveless relationship with a cheating husband. As the days went by, I kept waiting for the right moment to get back at Duncan. I was so fed up with how he treated me after my accident, and I wanted to make him regret it big time. With him hardly ever around, I had plenty of time to snoop around and find a way to get back at him and show him what he did to me was not okay. One day, while he was at work, I decided to dig into his home office files. And there it was, his upcoming business proposal. He had put so much effort into it, and it looked like a surefire way for him to score a promotion or a fat bonus at the very least. This discovery had an extra bonus because it reminded me of his habit of keeping just one copy. He believed having more than one copy, including a digital one, would make him overthink and ruin it. I used to think it was cute, but now I see it as plain dumb. But hey, his carelessness was my golden ticket. I knew I could mess with his big shot at success and teach him a lesson. I made a sneaky call to his assistant, pretending I needed to discuss his schedule for a surprise dinner date. Casually, I asked her about Duncan's upcoming meetings and when he'd make the proposal. Bingo, she spilled the beans. The presentation was in 2 days, and I couldn't have asked for a better time to expose him. I was waiting patiently for my husband to come home, but hours had gone by and there was no sign of him. I couldn't believe it. When I realized Duncan wasn't going to come home that night, I gave him a call. But he kept rejecting my calls, and I had a sinking feeling in my gut. I knew he was probably out partying and fooling around with other girls as usual. Then a text came in from him. He had the audacity to say this: "Hey babe, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you, but I am on my way to Germany. I'll be gone for a while. It was a very impromptu trip, so I'm sorry I forgot to tell you." Did he think I was some kind of fool? How could he say something so casually? More importantly, how could he just drop that bomb on me and expect everything to be okay? In a pathetic attempt to make up for his lack of communication, he then texted, "What do you want me to get you from Germany?" Ugh, how dare he try to act like everything was normal after what he did. Fuming with anger, I knew he was lying about his whereabouts. How do I know, you may ask? Well, when I snooped around earlier, I saw his passport lying in his home office. He couldn't even bother to hide it properly. What an idiot. Without hesitation, I texted him back. I was done with games. This was the last straw. "Don't even bother lying to me. I know you're not in Germany. Your passport is right here at home in your office, so stop with the games." Feeling the need to hit him with undeniable proof, I sent him a picture of his passport sitting on his desk. I wanted him to know that I wasn't falling for his lies anymore. His responses were all over the place. He kept typing and then deleting his messages, clearly trying to come up with more lies, but I wasn't having any of it. "You can't just treat me like garbage and then pretend like nothing happened. It's not fair and it's not going to work anymore. I know everything. I know about the cheating, the drugs, and the partying." But instead of facing the music, he just continued to avoid the truth. It was clear that he didn't have the guts to own up to what he did. I felt a mix of emotions, anger, hurt, and disappointment. How could I have ever loved a man who could do this to me? I deserved better than this, and I wasn't going to let him get away with it anymore. I was seething with anger, and I knew I had to take things up a notch. My initial plan of sabotaging his work papers felt too mild now. I wanted to hit him where it really hurt the most. I wanted everything to be ruined. I called my closest friends and told them I needed their help with my revenge plan. They were more than eager to assist me after everything I had been through with Duncan. One of my friends, who happened to be a lawyer, agreed to send over some divorce papers. It was time to show Duncan that I wasn't going to be his doormat anymore. With everything in place, my friends and I set our plan in motion. I began packing up my belongings, preparing to leave that house that once held so much love and happiness, but now only held painful memories. As I packed, a mix of emotions overwhelmed me. I was sad to be leaving behind the life I once knew, but at the same time I felt a sense of empowerment and freedom. I was finally taking control of my life. Before leaving, I decided to give Duncan a taste of his own medicine. I turned on all the taps in the house, leaving them running so that the house would flood by the morning. It was a symbolic act, a representation of how he had let our relationship drown in lies and betrayal. I wanted him to see the mess he had created, just like he had left me to deal with the mess he caused in my life. As I was driven away from that house, I couldn't help but look back one last time. The sight of it filled me with mixed emotions. It was a place that had once been my sanctuary, but now it represented heartache and deception. Oh boy, let's talk about the aftermath of my revenge plan. After I left that flooded house, I decided I didn't want anything to do with Duncan anymore. He kept calling me, sending me texts left and right saying how sorry he was and all that jazz. but I was done with his lies and excuses. I texted him back, telling him to brace himself for the divorce papers that were on their way to the mailbox since the house was flooded. It was time for him to face the consequences of his actions, and then, without giving him a chance to reply, I blocked his number. A few days passed and he still couldn't get through to me, so he tried reaching out to my friends, hoping they'd talk some sense into me, I guess. But they had my back all the way. They told me he was fuming when he found the house all flooded and his precious work ruined. Remember that brilliant proposal he made? Yeah, that one got drenched too. Ha! Talk about karma biting him in the butt. He realized there wasn't enough time to whip up a new proposal and he was panicking like crazy. His bosses were probably ready to skin him alive, and on top of that, he had to deal with the fact that I was getting ready to divorce him. What a headache for him. My friends and I had a good laugh about it. I mean, it was a bit evil, but come on, he had it coming. He thought he could treat me like trash and get away with it. Not on my watch. You'd think that the story would end there, huh? But nay, folks, it actually got worse. Let me tell you about the showdown between me and Duncan. So, after all the chaos I caused, he finally managed to track me down at my friend's apartment. I was still steaming with anger, but he looked just as mad. He barged in, completely disrespecting my friend's privacy, and that's when I let loose on him. I cussed him out like there was no tomorrow, calling him every name in the book. I mean, how could he do all those things to me after everything we had been through? It's bad enough that you're avoiding my calls. Now you're cursing at me? That's low, Taz. Avoiding your calls? Oh, I'm sorry. Did you expect me to be all lovey-dovey after everything you've done? Look, I messed up, okay? I know I made some mistakes, but that doesn't give you the right to ruin my life. Mistakes? You call cheating on me and lying about it a mistake? You're a lowlife, Duncan. Then this man had the audacity to start crying. The nerve. My life is falling apart because of what you did. Oh, poor you. Your life is falling apart. Maybe you shouldn't have betrayed and lied to your own wife. You messed with the wrong woman, Duncan. You're making me out to be the villain here. You're the one who flooded my house. You're the one who ruined my big presentation and got me demoted. You should be glad that that's all I did. Imagine if I could use my legs properly. You wouldn't know peace again. Then I dropped another bomb on him that he wasn't expecting. I told him that I leaked that picture of him doing drugs and being a womanizer to his assistant. Yeah, you heard it right. I wanted him to pay for his actions, and now he could expect to get fired real soon. What? Looks like that demotion is the least of your worries, mate. You're insane! You know that! Maybe, but that's why you shouldn't have messed with me. Duncan was a mess, I tell you. It was actually very embarrassing to witness. He kept crying and shouting, and I could see the total despair in his face. And let me tell you, I was glad. I told him he should be grateful that I didn't burn the whole house down with all his precious work. That would have been a real disaster for him. At that point, I was so done with him, I couldn't stand the sight of him anymore. So I looked him dead in the eye and said, I never want to see you again. Get the hell out before we call the cops. And you know what? I meant every word of it. He stormed out of there, probably realizing that he messed up big time. But you know what? I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I was finally free from all the lies and deceit. From that day on, I focused on rebuilding my life, and I never looked back. I surrounded myself with friends who truly cared about me, and I found a new sense of purpose and happiness. Sure, it wasn't easy, and there were still days when I felt angry and hurt, but I knew I was stronger than ever, and I would never let anyone treat me like that again. So, that's how my story goes. I went through hell and back, but I came out on top. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing, because in the end, I found my strength my voice, and most importantly, my freedom. And that, my friend, is a victory worth celebrating.